Hey, what's up, guys? Brad here. So today I want to talk about the stock market versus the economy and why we're seeing such a disconnect right now. With the stock market having rebounded quite a bit since March, and the economy, it just seems like it's getting worse and worse with the number of jobs that have been lost, with no foreseeable, we don't know when things are going to get back up and running here in the US. So there's an interview I watched recently from Sam Zell, okay? Sam Zell with Bloomberg. It was just released earlier in May 2020. Now, Sam Zell was first brought to my attention through Monish Pabrai. He's also known as the Gravedancer. And he wrote a book, Am I Being Too Subtle? Straight Talk from a Business Rebel. Now, I thought this was a fascinating interview with Sam Zell, and so I want to give a few of my highlights. But the first one is really, why is there this disconnect between, the equities markets and the economy? So Sam Zell says, so the sellers, the owners of stock, right, that wanted to sell still remember the prices that were available 7 or 8 weeks ago, back early on in March. They're anchoring to those prices that we saw before the downturn happened, all right? So those are the potential sellers anchoring to those high prices. The buyers are looking at a very different world, right? And expecting to see significant discounts from where we were 7 weeks ago. So potential buyers of stocks are looking at the economy thinking, wow, we've never seen unemployment rates like this. Numbers go up so fast with such magnitude. We haven't seen this before. So, when you have a spread like that between the sellers and the buyers, kind of living in two different realities, nothing happens, okay? So very few people are buying, very few people are selling because there's that delta between, what sellers want and what buyers want to pay. He goes on to say, we are all faced with an extraordinary level of uncertainty. I certainly not in my lifetime, not in Sam Zell's lifetime, has there been this much uncertainty with both the stock market and the economy. Past cycles that we've had, every cycle we've had in the recent past, they've all been financial cycles. And it's just been a question of financial recovery, right? This is that black swan event, that meteor that hits the earth that no one could have predicted. And it's not just financial, okay? It's a challenge we don't have any frame of reference for. And it's on an unprecedented scale. It's on a global scale. So there's just so much uncertainty. And that's part of what's happening with the delta between, owners of stocks who would like to sell and buyers who would like to buy. And he says in the real world, transactions, they aren't getting done. There were many businesses, real estate, where the sale was in process and things got pulled. There's just way too much uncertainty now. Transactions aren't happening. And then he says in the near term, which he defines as 2 to 4 years, we're going to see a lot of changes, okay? And here's a really important point. Most people have been asking, how long will this last, right? How long is shelter in place going to last? How long are we really only going to be leaving our houses to get groceries? How long is that going to last? Now, the question that's more interesting to Sam Zell is, how much will it cost to reopen? Once we get to that point where we're ready to kind of kickstart businesses once again, how much is that going to cost? And can businesses afford that cost of reopening? So there's not a lot of people thinking about those particular questions, but I mean, those are all important questions, incredibly important questions, because if businesses can't afford to reopen, if businesses can't afford to reopen slowly, where, you know, say you've got a restaurant and you open and you only have 20% capacity because people need to be, 6 feet apart, is that even a viable reopening plan for a lot of businesses? Airlines, if they can't fill those middle seats, if they have to have seats open between passengers, is that a viable? Can they actually make the business work? Will they not? Can they prevent going bankrupt by having open seats like that? A lot of them can't. So, those are some really important questions. And then he talks about how the Fed has pumped in about 6 to 7 trillion in liquidity and assistance. Liquidity, buying corporate securities, a lot of corporate bonds the government has been snapping up. And obviously, assistance, sending stimulus checks, unemployment, all of these things. So 6 to 7 trillion of liquidity and assistance from the Fed. He thinks it'll last about 60 to 90 days. 2 or 3 months is how far that's going to get us. So the real big question here is, how long can the government keep the economy propped up, right? What will the ramifications be, even with just this first stimulus liquidity injection of 7 trillion? What were the ramifications of that? So there's a lot of questions, and he thinks perpetuating this assistance, it's not sustainable, it's not realistic. So, considering that, we're not going to have a vaccine in 2020. Hopefully it'll come in 2021, but that's a lot longer than 2 or 3 months. So, what's going to happen? How many businesses are going to go bankrupt before we can reopen, before we can fully reopen? How many people are going to lose their jobs? These are huge questions, and obviously nobody knows. But it's interesting to think about, what are the probabilities here based on, what scientists are saying about the vaccine. Come the fall, come flu season again, are we going to see another surge? There's a ton of questions that nobody has answers for. But one thing Sam Zell is quite sure about is that we will all be permanently scarred having lived through this pandemic, which is, kind of a scary thought. Similar to the Great Depression. That's what Sam Zell says. And, I've heard similar things from Howard Marks. Ray Dalio thinks we're, coming to the end of the long-term debt cycle. So really interesting talks on Bloomberg. I'd highly recommend checking out Howard Marks, Ray Dalio, Sam Zell. This was a fantastic interview. All these fantastic minds, these incredible investors are coming out of the woodwork and kind of sharing what they're seeing and what their outlook is for the markets and the economy, which, just top quality thinking from all these people. So that's all I wanted to share, guys. I really wanted to just give this perspective that Sam Zell gave about why we're seeing such a disconnect between the stock market and the economy. And the sense from Sam Zell is, well, with the stock market, it's really the Fed propping things up, and he thinks it's not sustainable longer than, he didn't give a time, but he said this one will last about 2 to 3 months. So it'll be really interesting to see, come July, end of June, beginning of July, how the stock market and how the economy are where they're at, particularly relative to one another. So that's all I got, guys. Smash that thumbs up. It would really help me out. I'm making a video every day. I've made a video every day. I think it's 64 days now. 64 days in a row. And I'm shooting for 100 days in a row, and to be able to monetize my channel by the time I get to 100 days in a row, which is only a little more than a month from now. So pretty exciting. I'm on a good pace there. And hit that subscribe button if you like videos like this. This is more of a kind of stock market economy news video, but I do a lot about assessing different stocks, stock analysis. What am I buying? What's on my watch list? So if you like stuff like that, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. All right, guys, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.